some have eager anticipation, but the majority are at panic stations. This is where it all begins. We're only a day away from each manager going on their unique path. Across the course of 38 game weeks, it's certainly a marathon, not a sprint. And for this installment, it is time to welcome you to the first of many of our FPL Addicts podcasts, which is Gameweek 1. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be tuning in around the planet, welcome to the Game Week 1 edition of the FPL Addicts podcast. So your new 2024-25 season. I am your co-host, well, you could say at times, in Charlie Roberts. And tonight I am joined by esteemed company. One coming from the sweet toothpaste of Merseyside, and the other who is got the plethora, or should we say, a library of food analogies. And that is the mighty Reverend. We'll start from the top right. Reverend.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Yeah.
Great to have you.
Yeah, doing really good. Great to be back on the pod. Done a fair bit of tinkering at the start. Had a nice little time away on holiday as well, so feeling fresh, ready to attack this season.
Rev, where'd you go exactly?
Yeah, went to Spain. A little bit awkward because a lot of my family do live in Spain. They've married Spanish partners over there. So over the course of the Euros, there was a little bit of civil war in the Rev household between the Spaniards and the English. So that was fun. It was all good fun. But yeah, it was a good little football and summer. And yeah, ready to go again.
That's brilliant. I'm glad you're more ready than I was, because in fairness, on the right-hand side, while I was trying to do my opening monologue, I was completely on the wrong gadget. So there was a bit of a mini stop there. But one guy that certainly does not need a mini stop, especially when it comes to his analogies, it being Quentin, who's just joined back-to-back. Why not? Quentin, good evening to you. And how many podcasts have you been on the last week?
I think between ours, I think we've done 5 for our podcast ourselves. This will be the 7th.
Dedication. Dedication to the craft.
Charles goes, this is the spreadsheet that said it's all good, mate. I've done that much FPL the last 6 days. I should be all right.
Love it. I love it.
So, yeah, no, it's been very busy, actually. And I think I've watched, like 50 preseason games over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. So, yeah. All systems go, mate. Rev?
Quentin is prepared with the analysis, the pre-season analysis. I thought I was prepared, but Quentin, you've just blown me out the water there, so well played.
How many matches have you watched pre-season, Rev?
I'd say about like 20, something like that.
Okay, so if you remove the first number in front of 0, that's how many games I've watched it being 0. So
yeah.
I say Krispy Kreme donuts at its finest. That's what I've done right there.
And there's the food analogies. Straight away. Love it.
Oh, far out. Quentin, how much tinkering have you done on your own side, especially since the last fortnight?
Okay, well, if you add up the last 2 weeks, a lot. Just because, as I said, watching too much preseason. So I'd watch one game and see Jacob Murphy just killing it. So next minute he's in my team, and then I'm watching Minter, and then I'm like, he's in my team, and then I'm thinking, Jesus, I need to stop. So I just turn my phone off. But I've pretty much got my final draft now, and I've only tinkered with it once. So that was just to take out Livramento.
Okay.
He's probably not going to start week 1, but yeah, it's the last probably week I haven't done too much, but before that, yeah, if you had asked me, I'd at least on maybe 30 drafts before the other week. So too much.
Yeah, nice. I think I've got a tendency, like as an FPL player, to overthink in general. So one of the things that I've said to myself this season is to obviously not go fully on intuition, but to do my best to not overthink. So I've definitely made a lot less drafts, and I think it's helped me this season. It's like just seeing things have a more permanent space in those positions in my starting 11 has helped me like visualize it more. Like, yeah, I can see them staying there and I can see them do that, because when you can chop and change and do whatever you want, it's very easy to just get that little dopamine rush of making loads of transfers. And what that does is, game week 2, you hit the wild card button and you go, yeah, I want to do it all again. But instead of, I'm just being a bit steady, being a bit patient. My draft is a bit different, I guess. Not terribly different though. But at the same time, it's one that I'm definitely not overthinking either, and hopefully it shows that.
I like it, Rev. I'm actually on a similar path of yours where I didn't really make a lot. It's more structural changes and not major ones, not a complete overhaul. It's just those where you lock in your premiums and your players that you genuinely feel you're going to do well. And then there's sort of others, like the emergence of enablers. And maybe that's probably one of the talking points in terms of, we'll talk about the enablers very quickly. And let's go with Barco from Brighton. How much do you look at him? Start off with you, Quentin, then Rev.
Yeah, I think the upside is there early on, but then there's people saying that he's going to start, and if he plays good, then Purvis won't get back into the team. But I feel like Estupiñán, when he did come back into the team last year, he was really good. So I'm torn, because by the time the good fixtures come around is around the time that Estupiñán is supposed to be coming back. So that's sort of the only thing putting me off. But I definitely think there's a bit of upside there if he does keep his spot.
Yeah, I think the other thing to mention with Barco that maybe slightly puts me off is the idea that Brighton are also in the market at the moment for a particular guy who played most of his minutes at either wing-back side for his previous team, either left-back or right-back. And so, by the way, someone's feeding back as well, so turn yourself down, turn your speakers down, boys. Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing that mainly puts me off Barco. Getting him in. He is in my team at the moment because, the transfer window is volatile, and, we see teams go for players all the time and they don't get them, but maybe that's just me being hurt as an Everton fan, being linked with everyone and signing no one all the time.
What do you reckon Barco, Faze, and is it Howard Bellis from Southampton? Like, if you're picking now between the three and you have to maybe start one over the next week or two, who are you picking?
None of them. I am a Ben Johnson advocate right now. So haven't watched Ipswich. Like, honestly, only FPL can make a man watch Ipswich pre-season, And honestly, watching Ben Johnson flying up and down that right wing, he was basically a right winger. Like, and the FPL manager in me is going, is this John Lundstrom in disguise? Like, this could be like, it's happening again. So yeah, keep your eye out for Ben Johnson. I think he's easily the best 4.0 mil defender. I think Hartwood Bellis is probably the worst. I just don't like that team defensively at all in the slightest. I just don't think that they're viable, and I think they're going to get battered most weeks. Conceded a lot of goals in the Championship last season, so yeah. And then who was the other one? FaZe. Just 2 points every week, I guess. But with Johnson, I think there is definitely goal or assist potential, especially having watched Ipswich in pre-season. As soon as I finished watching that game, I was like, so who was their right winger? And I was looking through the midfielders on Ipswich, and I couldn't find them. And I was like, wait a minute, he's listed as a defender. So
is that the Ben Johnson from West Ham?
From West Ham, yeah. And I really like Ben Johnson for when he played at West Ham. I think he was unlucky not to keep his spot. So yeah, well played to the lad. He's gonna do a gambit. I think as I'm about to make a name for myself here.
I had the Leif Davis goggles on, so I didn't see Ben Johnson. But
yeah, no, that's fair. Leif Davis, another good shout. I think It's one of those where I think there's a few good 4.5 mil options that kind of trump the idea of playing an Ipswich defender. But if you've got an Ipswich defender playing right wing, it's got like Sheffield United, John Lunston right wing vibes written all over it for 4.0 mil. I think it's maybe something I can't ignore. So he's in my team.
Yeah. A lot to think about on the transfer front, and that probably provides a terrific segue to the big transfer moves of the summer. And we've got to start up North London. Dominic Solanke from Cherry Down Lane to now the side that did used to own White Hart Lane, in Tottenham Hotspur under Ange Postecoglou and his own wheel. How much does this change your thinking?
Massively. I think there was like a season ago where, a couple of seasons ago, when Harry Kane came into the game, right? And he was 10 mil. And I was like, this is an absolute gift at 10 mil. A ridiculous, ridiculous gift. We can't look a gift horse in the mouth. And
you love that quote, don't you, Rev?
Yeah, you can't. He's unbelievable. He scored 19 goals for Bournemouth last season. We're getting Spurs as number 9 for 7.5 mil. And for those listening on podcast, I'm just putting my hands in the air. I'm like, why on earth would you not go with Dominic Solanke? He's a proven Premiership goal scorer, and he's going to be playing in a team which is going to create so many chances for him. I am excited to see what Dominic Solanke can do in a Spurs shirt.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think my biggest thing to look at is how good is Solanke going to make other assets at Tottenham. So you think Son is going to be even better this year with an actual number 9 playing up top where he can, and because Solanke's at number 9 where you can play the ball into him and he can play it back and then he can play you through, or he allows you to overlap and then he plays the ball through. So I feel like that almost makes Son an even better pick. So a lot of people are focused on what will Solanke do, but it's like, what's Solanke going to allow the other assets at Tottenham to do? So yeah, I think it's massive.
I think it's big, I agree, and I'm not surprised how popular he's proven. But I actually preferred it if he didn't move. I reckon him as a Bournemouth talisman would have made him a little more... It's still an attractive option at Spurs, but I think at Bournemouth, because he was more talismanic at that club, as opposed to he may be at Spurs. I think he might be the second or third highest point scorer at Spurs. But I think Son... he'll steal the limelight, but I actually think Son may score more points than him in the long run. But big surge in ownership.
Yeah, I think for that price though, 7.5 mil. Like I don't think we would be right to expect Son numbers in terms of FPL points. I think the other thing that's really appealing for me to for Dominic Solanke coming in at 7.5 mil is that it's not that I don't believe in the hype of players like Chris Wood or Munoz from Fulham or João Pedro from Brighton. I think these players are good picks, but I just think Spurs is number 9, man. Spurs' number 9 is just something I absolutely can't turn down. I like Wood. I like Chris Wood. Guys, I love Wood. Yeah. Don't clip that. Don't clip that. I like Munoz from Fulham. I even like Dominic Calvert-Lewin from Everton. I think he's had a good pre-season. He did have one stinker of a game, but he's had a lot of injury problems. And if he can get back to the Dominic Calvert-Lewin that we saw in the pre-season game versus Roma, where he shrugged off a defender like he wasn't even there and buried it, that would be a good option. But all of these options for me aren't reliable. Certainly not as reliable as a point scorer, as a proven goal scorer like Dominic Solanke playing in an incredible Spurs team.
Yeah. I think there's so many options there as that third striker point at different So you've mentioned Pedro for what, 5.5?
Yeah.
Wood,
Can we
6,
trust them
Muniz,
though?
6.
That's my question.
You can trust Munoz, mate. There's, you know,
Can you?
Fulham's
Okay.
number 9. He's R9 for a reason.
But I feel like his expected minutes hovering around 70s at the moment in terms of
all he needs,
analytics.
That's all he
That's
needs.
all he needs. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. But it's just like when I feel like Solanke's going to be the 90-minute man, and just said he can start.
Not
know.
when the pigeon's back. When the pigeon's back,
Oh yeah,
it could be rotation.
I'm not being funny. I don't think they're going to spend, what is it, 67 million on Solanke, and then use him as a rotation option.
Didn't they use the same for Richarlison?
Richarlison was about 50 mil.
Okay.
There's still
Wasn't
a
he?
rumor floating around that they're in for Tony as well. So imagine that they sign Ivan Tony and Dom Solanke.
If they sign Ivan to and do a Mike Bassett and play 4-4-2, yeah, that would mean I would take Son out my team straight away. To be fair,
Now our brains are warmed up. I think we're just got to have to go straight to the top. Haaland and Salah, neither or just one of them. Who is more quintessential, considering we've got Quentin here? Q, you're going to start this off in short term.
Sorry, what? Sorry, what was the question? Again? Sorry.
Salah versus Haaland, one, either, or both.
I think with Haaland, the difference is week one. Who's going to be the other attractive asset from Man City before the players that have come back from international duty? Like Foden might not even play to week 2, week 3. KDB, one overstretched leg, far away from pulling a hamstring, and then you've got Haaland. And then when you look at Liverpool, you've got Diaz, you've got Jota, you've got Trent, you've got Gakpo. I feel like there's a lot of options there. Whereas I feel like the goals might be shared. And as I said to you before the stream started, Jota, when you know he's going to start, he can score.
It's too good, man. Too good.
But when you look at City, who are you saying, when this person gets time, they'll score points, like Oscar Bob, but he's now out.
Injured.
Like, what does Grealish do?
What a shame.
Over a Haaland?
What a shame.
The options. Are you taking a chance on KDB? Or are you taking a chance on Grealish?
Yeah.
Too many question marks, I think.
Yeah, Oscar Bob was definitely in my team. And he was like a lock for me. Because Chaza might remember, but I did the same thing with an analysis of Man City's preseason minutes last season. And I was one of the few people in the world, it would seem, to start with triple Man City attack. I started with Foden, Alvarez, and Haaland, and that went really well. Because I kept an eye on preseason minutes, and Oscar Bob has got the most preseason minutes out of everyone, very akin to what Julian Alvarez did last season. So real shame to see him out, which means I think Quentin makes a great point about the shared goals. If someone's scoring in that Man City team, it's the robot, isn't it? It's the Norwegian meat shield, But whereas if someone scores from Liverpool, it could be one of 5 or 6 players, and so that's why I've gone myself for Haaland instead. Don't get me wrong. It's like I'm not like, and Chaza, you'll like this. I'm not saying I'm nervous, but I'm a little bit shaky about watching Salah and him not being in my team. But I feel like Jota's so good. Jota can cover that.
I think a lot of people feel shaky on the eve of a genuine panic stations. Before we get to the next point, in which Rev is going to take an entire dance floor towards every episode, this is an integral part. It's part of our DNA. Mm-hmm. It's part of our backbone. The community questions, and we always are incredibly thankful and appreciative. Salah's even commented, you're not even joking, Mohammed has tuned in, and he's not even going for himself. I'm going for Haaland and Jota in the end. But of course, our number one has popped in.
Oh, Colm, the legend.
Yeah, he's got the Fulham torch on himself, and we'll touch onto him very shortly. Thank you, as always, Colm. Now, Rev, it's all to you on the premium midfielders.
Yeah, premium midfielders. So I feel like there's a few that need to be spoken about. It's Cole Palmer versus Saka, I guess, versus Son. That's my whole face, Chaza. You know, I'm open to have a conversation. But I don't know what you guys think in terms of premium midfielders. I think the way I would rank them would be, first of all, I would have Heung-min Son, and I know over Saka. Then I would have Saka, and then I would have Cole Palmer, because I think his 0.5 increase in price over the previous two is quite a big factor to consider. It forces you to chop and change elsewhere. With Son, I feel like he's had a complete pre-season. I feel like Spurs always start well. I feel like Spurs are a very attacking team that go absolutely hell for leather. Spurs are a side that maybe they don't really care if they concede two, because they're going to score 4 or 5. You know, and they've got a lot of players that can contribute to that. But touching back on what Quentin said before about about what you, Chaza, said before about a player being talismanic. Well, I do think that Son is talismanic. Whereas Arsenal, they feel more like a cohesive unit. And that's not a bad thing for Arsenal, but for FPL, you know, we do want talismans, don't we? And we want players in which we know everything's going to go through them. If Spurs get a goal, then you can almost guarantee Son is going to have an involvement in it, whether that's on the counter or whether that's from a ridiculous long-range shot or whether that's from a clinical finish in the box. You know, he's absolutely got it all. Whereas I feel like Saka, it depends on the tactics that they're going to play. You know, sometimes we see Saka absolutely shagging the touchline for the whole game. And, you know, if you've got him in your team, you're like, get in the box, what are you doing? But he's just there, he's stretching the pitch, and it depends on what Arteta said to them beforehand. But what I do know with Son is he's going to be in there amongst it, absolutely fighting to get those goal involvements.
See, Salah's scary with the new hairstyle. He looks like old mate off Prison Break. I'm not sure whether you got that shot in the UK, but
yeah,
it kind of scares me a little bit because I saw it and I'm like, the dude looks like he's ready just to tear things apart.
Yeah, I was watching an FPL Raptor episode, and he was saying that the reason he's going to go for Salah is just because he's bald now. He just thinks like Salah bald era could be a thing, and he looks dangerous. But in that 4-1 win, he didn't get any goal involvements from the preseason game, and yeah, it says and Colm, by the way, hello Colm, really good to have you back in the stream, matey. Colm makes a great point. Like, Son feels like a player that you can go for at the beginning of the season, and you can really attack those really nice Spurs fixtures with. Whereas Saka is a bit more of a set and forget. Like, is Saka going to get us points? Yes. Well, are Spurs going to come racing out the blocks like they do every season? I think also yes, and that's the reason I'm going for Son. I think just to touch on Cole Palmer for a moment. I think Cole Palmer is a great pick. I just think he's too expensive.
Yeah.
I think his attack and returns, they're not dependent, they're completely dependent on penalties. But he did get a lot of penalties last season, and you know it's one of those things where I think we can just guarantee a bit more from Son or Saka. I know that sounds harsh, but yeah.
How are we going to pick how Chelsea line up? They've got 49 squad players. They literally could play any formation that's ever invented by a coach.
Yeah, it's like Gru and the minions up in there. They're like he's, you know, it's like the manager's surrounded by everyone. They're like, hello, pick me.
And Lukaku just there in the background, still waiting to get a transfer out of the club.
I know, right? Yeah. Honestly, it's like it's that hard. I mean, I think there's one Chelsea asset that we can go for, and I have gone for begrudgingly, I guess, but only because I feel like the budget's a lot tighter this year. But anyway, we'll get on to that when we go to our teams. But hello, Gary, by the way.
Yeah.
Gary Worthington, what a legend. Good to see you, mate.
Indeed.
Back in the chat.
Hello to you, Gary. We'll cover a general point before we go to Q's one. Who is the best one in Fulham? And we may as well just talk about them now. Fulham Assets. Well, I mean, like, there's Munoz, there's Robinson, and the starlight, and that is, think about me. Think about, it's a
Emile Smith-Rowe. Yes.
You guys started off.
Gotta do it.
Who's the best asset from the Cottagers?
Do you know what? I'm probably going to get called a closet Fulham fan like last season with the Spurs thing. So
yeah,
I think there's too many assets. I think Leno is a great pick in goals. Save the number one thing they look for in a keeper, save points. Leno
save points.
Offers lots of save points. And
does
you want a defense that's good enough to give up low percentage shots but not concede a bunch. And, Fulham showed last season that they can, concede maybe one goal, but then Leno makes 6 saves. So I feel like he has a bit of upside. I think Anthony Robertson, he's got the biggest tick is the Razzler haircut, which is the bleach blonde hair. But where he was playing is similar to Munoz from Crystal Palace, where he's pretty much playing a winger and he's cutting into the box. I think he had 2 assists in one of the preseason games where he was literally playing like a winger. So
yeah,
I think there's an upside there. And then you look at Smith-Rowe, who's just looked amazing. Looks like he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder, wanting to prove, people wrong. And then you've got
angry ASR. I'm gutted he's not on my team because I'm here for it. Like, I want to see it. Right.
He's looked really good, but the thing with me is my biggest worry was the creativity for him, seeing that Polina had left.
Yeah.
But watching Smith-Rowe sign, even Adama Baby Oil Traore, he has looked outstanding. Like, I've always, thought, he could be a really good player if he could finish, but the preseason
he's an absolute
really good.
He's an absolute XG, XA merchant. Like, never again. As an analytics manager, I've been hurt by him so many times in the past. He puts up great data. Data and not a lot of output. So he's on my list. He's on my list of players that I will never, ever own again in FPL. Adama Traore, Reece James, and Darwin Núñez. They've made the list. Never again.
List. That's an all-star list.
Never again.
What was it, 3 years ago when he was at Wolves, we called him the blue balls of FPL. He does all the hard work.
The blue balls. That is incredible. That is the analysis we're here for. I mean, so far, the analysis has been absolutely excellent. We've been talking about players that we should pick, not based on the data, but what haircuts they've got. And we've been telling people to avoid players just because they give us blue balls, Like and subscribe. But
my point is, I was worried about the creativity in Fulham's lineup for Munoz, but watching the preseason games, I think there's going to be a lot of creativity. Even Alex Iwobi's turning the clock back looks sensational. So I think Munoz, for me, probably the best third striker option going into Gameweek 1.
And I think the biggest loser in all of this is probably Andreas. So as a result, he's dropping deeper now. Having watched a couple of Fulham preseason games, and Andreas is one of those players in which I do see a little bit of ownership for. But with the addition of ESR, Iwobi, Munoz, those forward attacking positions there's more competition for. But Andreas is good enough to still stay on the pitch. He just has to drop a little bit deeper now. So watch out for that. That could be a trap.
Correct. Very briefly, before I get to a very interesting comment I've just come across, if I've got to rank my top 3, I'm going Robinson 3rd. Look, I want to say the Espresso Son again, but once only is good enough. Smith-Rowe in 2nd, and then Quentin's man of the moment in Rodrigo Munoz. And he might get featured more later in this episode. But Gary, very interesting comment. Smith-Rowe is like a cat who got the cream. Now he got a team that he can get into regularly. It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's good. More food analogies here on the FPL Addicts.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, love it.
Oh, yeah. Quentin, you're wearing the shirt. Let's talk about assets from that side. All yours.
Manchester United.
Rev's going to laugh me off, but watching the preseason games, Rashford actually looks like the old Rashford, not in terms of looking like he's going to score like 100.
I've heard that before. Sorry, mate. I just got something in my chest.
He actually looks like he wants to play football, whereas last year, I almost thought he was falling asleep a couple of times watching United play, but he's actually taking plays on. He looks confident, and we saw 2 seasons back where confident Rashford what he can do. So I think he looks focused. And then you got Garnacho. You've actually got a back line now. We've signed that many defenders this offseason that we might actually have some type of shape going forward. But we've already had 2 injuries, so what's a few more before the season starts.
Yeah.
But
have you signed De Ligt, by the way?
Yeah, De Ligt and is it Mazaroy?
Yeah,
from Bayern.
Has that gone through now? De Ligt.
So apparently they waited for each other at the airport and they caught the same plane for their medical. So.
Oh, love that. Oh,
I thought it was the Uber.
Oh, transfer friends. Transfer friends.
But I actually watched some footage of him at Bayern. Actually, he's really good. So Luke Shaw apparently is injured, so he might actually start sooner rather than later because Bissaka's gone to West Ham. But yeah, I like the look of Garnacho and Rashford as options this season. I think they could be really good. And Diallo, if people obviously have Oscar Bob, I think going across to Diallo because I think he'll start at least the first 2 game weeks.
And what about Ahmad as well?
Yeah, Ahmad Diallo.
Sorry, I didn't know his full name. Yeah. Well, I just mean like give us a little about him in general, like because obviously he's just 5 mil, and that's
he's
pretty tasty.
MVP of the preseason for United, so I thought he's actually looked really good. And like last year, you saw him in the Championship; he was incredible. And then he come back to United. And apparently, we couldn't fit him in our side, even though we weren't winning any games. So. Finally, he's got to show what he can do in preseason. And I think he's going to at least start the first 2 because we've got Haaland that's injured, Anthony's injured, Sancho could be with the under-23s or he could be leaving, I'm not sure. Xerxes hasn't even played any preseason football.
Yeah, didn't Sancho just miss a penalty as well?
Yeah.
So
I think Rashford will be the number 9 at least early on in the season. And then I'm pretty sure Diallo will be playing on one wing with Garnacho on the other. But yeah, who knows? We could end up with Mason Mount playing like number 10 and Bruno up top.
I forgot he still exists. Yeah. Gosh.
So yeah, if all things go to plan, I think Diallo should at least get the first 2.
Yeah, I think for me the most viable options are Garnacho and Diallo, who I just learned the name of. Diallo. It's just because he's registered as Ahmad on the FPL app, so that's just what I've been calling him in my head. But yeah, he looks exciting. He looks exciting. Looks really good.
So Quentin,
but I'm not going to go for any of them.
actually, the biggest asset is Onana. So
oh wow, that's bold.
You're paying a bit for what looked like a basket case last season, but here, stick with me.
The defensive improvements.
They only had 9 clean sheets last year. He averaged just under 4 saves a game. I think their defense is better this year, so I think I could maybe entertain 11 to 12 clean sheets this year, and I definitely think he can stay at that 3 to 4 saves a game. So I think some weeks you're getting maybe 6 points, some weeks you might get 8 or 9, and then some weeks when they do concede, you might get 4. So yeah, I think. Start the season at least is a good option, and maybe move into Martinez for Villa's fixtures when they open up.
Another side, you could say on the contrary, but they've signed all these many players, and we probably touched on it before. Chelsea, in short answer terms, are they a complete avoid or not? Because it seemed in pre-season that they may be playing low on confidence, and especially under a new manager.
I think defensively, very shaky. Looking, and it's one of the reasons why I think there's a really good captaincy shout for Haaland in game week 1, even if you might be tempted by Isak, even if you go for Haaland, then it's because Chelsea are just really rough at the back at the moment. They don't seem to know how to be like a cohesive unit in defence at the moment. The Chelsea attack, like they are literally Gru and the minions. There's like so many of them. They all like play the same position. There are memes about the squad. Like there's like a clown car that comes up and the clowns just keep getting out, and people have like labelled them like Sterling, Pedro Neto, blah blah blah, like Jackson, blah, like as they just keep getting out, like Chelsea's attack, trying to make a stake for our team. I think there is one player who is probably a bit of a safer option because he's had a great preseason, and that's Christopher Nkunku. He's looked really solid, and I think what we can't do is like expect the world from him, especially against Man City. I think that's something that we need to really wind our necks in. We're not going to be getting, Diego Costa levels of points, from back when he was in our FPL teams a good few seasons ago, playing for Chelsea. But he's 6.5 mil. He's a mid. He's playing very advanced, and he should be doing a great job for them. And I think if he can stay fit, and that's a big if, he'll be great for our FPL teams.
Yeah, do you think they're going to have to do something? Because they've got, Neto, Madueke, Palmer, like they've got Sterling, like they've got so many wingers. Like, are they going to have to play one as a makeshift striker? Like, I don't know how they're fitting everyone in.
Well, this is the thing about Nkunku is like we know he can play through the middle, so he seems to be like the no-brainer. Obviously, once they get the Man City fixture out the way. They go from there. They go to Wolves, Palace, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Forest. I think that's absolutely everything you want in an FPL fixture run, to be honest. And having a Chelsea asset from there. And if you're not going to have Cole Palmer, Christopher Nkunku is the shout.
Yeah. Rev, just like last season on the opening episode, while you're at it, because you've done a really good job naming their first 7 fixtures, are you able to name their next 31?
Yeah, sure. And then everyone can turn off the podcast. Yeah.
So
it's a good run of games, Chaza. Is that what you want me to say? Chaza?
Well, that kind of paints a picture thanks to the fixture difficulty rating. That's for sure. A certain picture that isn't quite painted across managers is how they structure their goalkeepers. Is it set and forget, or is it 2 4.5s and a 4.5 and one that is rather forgotten? Quentin, first to you. What's your stance on this?
Sorry, what was the question?
Goalkeepers, price and structure.
Oh, goalkeeper. See, a lot of people are on Henderson, but he doesn't really get save points. So there's not really, for me, a standout 4.5 pick that's really going to get save points consistently when you look at the options that are available, because, Pickford's now 5. You've got Pope, who's 5. You've got Anana, who's 5. Martinez is 5. Maybe who nabs the Nottingham Forest keeper first spot is probably, I think...
Sells?
Possibly. I think he has a little bit of upside. Flecken, I really hate Brentford defensively to start the season. They looked horrific in pre-season, so he might get save points, but he doesn't help if he concedes 3 or 4.
Yeah. 100%.
I guess Palace is probably the safest because they can lock it down and keep it quite tight, but I feel like this season you're probably wanting to spend that 5 million to start the season and go like a Pickford, a Pope, Martinez, or a Onana, or pay the extra and buy into the Arsenal defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is like an interesting one because for me, I've not really been able to find a 4.5 mil goalkeeper that I'm comfortable with. And even the ones that you think, oh, well, they're in a solid team or they've got good fixtures, there are minutes issues that surround those players, like, you know, the Bournemouth keeper or who's going to be the Nottingham Forest keeper. You know, those are still questions that are very, very much unanswered. You know, Brighton have got awful fixtures, and we don't know who's going to be starting for them either under the new manager. So yeah, it's crazy. I think personally, I'm going for not necessarily a set and forget, but someone who I think is just going to be ultra solid to start the season with. I did make one change to my team just yesterday, based off of the Oscar Bob news, where he got injured, where I've upgraded one of my midfielders to a 5.5 and downgraded someone else. And that freed up a couple of million, and that allowed me to go for a 5.5 mil option in Raya. I just think it's going to be, he's probably the most solid option for me. And that's all I can really say about it.
Right, does offer save points potential as well.
Yeah.
When he was at Brentford, he can rack up the saves.
Yeah, for sure.
I think with this, I think a 4.5 and a 4 could be the way to go personally. I do understand the 5.5, but that extra million could be big on one of the 10 positions further up the field. But having 2.45s, the only downside is that you may be benching someone who will produce a bigger haul. So you're missing out on points each week.
Yeah, it seems to be like quite inconsequential, to be honest. Like having two goalkeepers that you're rotating with, it just gives you another headache. And I know I've tried to be cute in the past with like Ward and Iverson from Leicester and stuff. Yeah, and you know, and look how that worked out. You know, I'm not about to invest even more in rotating keepers just for me to get the wrong answer every week. You know, that's definitely something that's not going to happen for me. But I think, you know, Arsenal, one of the best defences in the league. From an analytics point of view, Arsenal put up great defensive stats as well. So I'm probably going to go with Raya. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. We've got a question here from Jan Adis, and this could be quite intriguing. A 4.5 million defender and Rodgers, or a second 4 million defender and Smith Rowe. Before I go to you both, for once, I'm actually going to answer this just straight off the get-go. I reckon a second 4 million defender and Smith Rowe, only because not only Smith Rowe has a good son to him, I reckon he's got really good upside about him and quite a ferocious Fulham attack to start the season. And there's a plethora of 4 million defenders. So we got, what is it, Ben Johnson? There's Harwood Bellis, even though he made
Ben Johnson.
Marco in the short term. I think you can get away with a second option. Briefly, either of you or both. Go, Rev.
I've got 2 4.0 mil defenders and Rodgers. So I think if this is the thing about this particular debate, right, is about how much cover is good enough bench cover. And for me, having someone who did really well for Aston Villa, especially during the back half of last season, someone who, you know, you're not going to be starting in the first couple of games anyway. And when Aston Villa's fixtures turn, and don't worry, Chaza, I won't name them all in game week 3, then you've got Morgan Rodgers ready to come in for this absolutely excellent run. It depends. If you start Smith Rowe and have the second 4 mil defender. But if this is for your bench, I would definitely have Rodgers and the 4 mil defender, and I'd invest the 0.5 in my start 11.
Okay.
I'm going to say I don't like either. I think you need to find a way to get a 4.5 defender and a 5.5 attacker, because, or not attacker, a midfielder, because there's so many 5.5 million assets that have good fixtures. Like you look at Kamada at Palace, you've got Smith Rowe, you've got Minte, who will have decent fixtures eventually. I just think there's too many 5.5 midfield options to be looking at a 5.0. I guess depends how your team sets up. But then there's like so many 4.5 good defenders. You've got Robertson, you've got Quentin early in the season, good short-term option. I think there's a lot of good short-term 4.5 picks in defense and a lot of good 5.5 picks in the midfield. So I think you need to somehow fit them in. But I think if it was choosing between those two options, I think having Rodgers and the 4.5 defender, because I think Rodgers has a lot of short-term upside.
Don't worry, I know what you're laughing at, Rev. I'll get to his comment.
No, it's I just see a couple of my mates in the chat. Hello, Mim, and hello, Alan. Alan the legend.
Because of this point you're mentioning, is it worth going big at the back this season?
Depends if you're going with the non-Salah starter pack, which is the Trent Alexander-Arnold and Jota, or if you're going Quentin and Salah.
If Newcastle sold Trippier, I would very likely be playing 5 at the back to start the season. No joke. Yeah, I would have Hall, Livramento, Gvardiol, Alexander-Arnold, and Pedro Porro to start the season for sure.
Newcastle,
mate, that back line is delicious.
Isn't it something? And you know what? It gets rid of the whole headache of, shall I go for Smith Rowe or shall I go for Hudson-Odoi or whatever? Just like have all those 5 players who basically play as wingers and strikers in your back line. Get rid of the selection headaches, get rid of the minutes headaches, but I can't do it because I can't justify it. I'd have 2 midfielders and I'd have Saka. No, not Saka. I'd have Haaland, Isak, and Solanke, and just have 2 midfielders, and then I'd have like Rodgers, Bob, and Winks on the bench.
I was watching the Newcastle game with Livramento, and I was like, "Oh, who did they sub off Jacob Murphy with?" But it was Livramento just playing as a winger, and Murphy was cutting inside. I was like,
I know, right? Well, this is what I mean. Like, I don't think big at the back. I think big at the back becomes very viable if Trippier goes, and that's something I need to keep my eye on. But he's not going anyway. So Reverend Alan Finney, a fellow Reverend, asked the question: who should I have in my team? I haven't done it yet. Yeah, Alan, you should have Michael Keane in your team. You should have Anthony from Man United. You should have
good upside for
Johnny Evans, Darwin Núñez as well. Really, really good pick. I'm determined to batter Alan this year. He's taken the absolute mick out of me the last 2 years. Yeah. So this is my time now. But he's going to see my team in a minute. He's going to see my team, and then he just gets to copy it. So
whatsoever. Q, another one to you now. We talked about defenders just briefly, especially one from Fulham. But you like to talk about a head-to-head style. Munoz from Crystal Palace and Anthony Robertson from the west part of London.
Yeah, there's a lot of people I'm seeing saying that they're having one or the other. I personally am probably going with Robertson. I think his link-up play with Smith Rowe and Munoz has been really good, and Munoz is just like a fox in the box, like get a ball into the box and he'll score. So, whereas I think Palace are going to be starting with Edouard, who has been okay, he's serviceable, but he's not Munoz. And, Mateta was hot towards the end of the season, but what was he doing for the first 3 quarters of the season? Not much at all. So I think there's a lot more upside with the Fulham attack, but I'm not against people going both of them because I think they're both great assets. But the way their managers are getting into play, they're playing like wingers, like Rev said. It's going to go all out defense. And I saw a thing where Munoz is going to be playing more of a winger, and the wide player will be dropping in a bit more centrally to allow him to have the full channel up and down. So there's a little bit of upside there, but I think Robertson, if I'm looking side by side at the preseason and looking at the Copa America, I think Robertson is the pick for me.
I like it.
And he's ranked top 10 in our attacking upside formula for the fantasy amateurs. So
that is another formula to look out for, especially from the FPL amateurs of Oz. Make sure to check out their pod. But maybe another thing you should check out is Reb's opinion on the Newcastle wingers, Jacob Murphy against Anthony Gordon. You're pretty hot on this.
Yeah, I mean, but we'll see that when we go into our teams in a minute when we explain our picks, I guess. Until then, I feel like I've already revealed my starting 11 without actually showing it. I think we need to reveal the team. We're 50 minutes in,
Okay.
and we've not shown the people what they want yet. Some drafts. So let's show the people some drafts.
All right. Well, without further ado, you look incredibly eager, like you're about to get off your chair, Rev. So I'm going to let you go first on this.
Yeah. All right. Sounds. So here's my draft. In goal, we have David Raya of Arsenal, and he's going to be doing some bits. And by the way, first of all, regardless of what you think of the draft, it's aesthetically pleasing. Look at the aesthetics, guys. Expected aesthetics data is through the roof here. That triple Newcastle, triple Spurs, either side. Lewis Hall, he's had a great pre-season. Alexander-Arnold, the cheapest he's ever been for since his debut season in FPL. I think he's an absolute gimme. Excellent fixtures, great creativity, on set pieces, likely to get assists, and is doing really well. Pedro Porro, his underlying data is a bit of a joke, actually. It could be really good, and I just think now that they've got Dominic Solanke, as soon as they signed Dominic Solanke, Pedro Porro came straight back into my team, because I think he's got a couple of really clinical people in front of him now in Son and in Solanke as well. So he's going to be great. I'll go from right to left here. Son, he's had a full pre-season. He's got pretty decent fixtures. I might think about moving somewhere else for game week 3 and 4 and then bringing him back in, but you never know what happens in FPL. But Son, his history speaks for itself, and he's going to be a really solid way to start the team. Diogo Jota, Jota the Slaughter, mate. He's just a bit good. Yeah, and Colmy says, the old game week 2 wild card incoming. Thanks for the confidence, mate. I love you too. But yeah, he's great, and I think whilst he's playing as number 9, I don't think he's a bad pick at all. And Nkunku's probably the one I'm most concerned about because of his fitness, and also he's not really proven in the Prem just yet. But he has had a really good pre-season, and if he can stay fit, he'll be playing through the middle. And from game week 2 onwards, he'll be a pretty tasty pick. This is a controversial one, I guess. Jacob Murphy. A lot of people have gone for Anthony Gordon, but Jacob Murphy's had a full pre-season. He's also got 5 goals and 3 assists pre-season, more than anyone else. So he's been flying, and the rumor is as well, by the way, take note everyone, is that Almiron looks set to leave the club. Newcastle are in talks to sell him, which means less competition, which means for me actually that the person whose minutes are most under fire with the existence of Harvey Barnes in the wings is probably Anthony Gordon. I think Anthony Gordon is maybe now more likely to be subbed off than Jacob Murphy. So what I've done here with my defence is I've downgraded Gordon to Murphy, and I've upgraded the 4.5 to Pedro Porro and my 4.5 keeper to Raya. Because instead of Gordon 4.5, 4.5, I've now got Murphy, who might do just as well as Gordon, if not better, because he's been flying in pre-season, and I've got 2 of the best defensive assets in the game as a result. So I think that's a very logical decision. I'll go from right to left again. Dominic Solanke, he Spurs as number 9. We don't need to say anything more about that. Absolute, gift of an FPL asset. If the Solanke transfer went through a week earlier before the game was released, we'd be looking at 9.5 mil for this player easily. I think he's maybe 2 million, 2.5 million underpriced. And so, yeah, he's going to be great for us. The Nordic Meat Shield as well. Obviously speaks for himself, and he's going to be the main go-to captaincy option from game week 2 onwards. As we see these fixtures here, he's going to be absolutely excellent. And then, seemingly, the person who's in every FPL Twitter managers team is Alexander Isak. I'm going to use the E word, boys. He's essential. He's essential. He's essential. Guys, he's essential. I haven't used the E word for a long time, but he's essential. You know, I don't think I've used the E word since maybe Mo Salah, maybe 3 seasons ago. Essential. You know, I think he's in for a mega season. Obviously, the European commitments for Newcastle are something that they're aiming for this season, and not something to not something to contend with, though, in terms of like managing their minutes. And they've got some excellent fixtures to open with, so I think he's going to be absolutely flying against a Southampton team who look shocking defensively. It's got to be said, and they do really look shocking. My bench, I am a Ben Johnson advocate. Especially from game week 2 onwards. He's going to be playing right wing for Ipswich. And look at those fixtures between game week 3 and game week 10. I am having an absolute slice of that. Thank you very much. That is an absolute buffet of FPL points right there.
That's food analogy.
Yeah. I know. I did that just for you, mate. Barco, again, he's just a 4.5. He's just a 4.0 mil defender. I don't even like his fixtures. You know, I think he could maybe come in 4 or 5 as when some other players have some more difficult fixtures. Like, for example, when Porro plays Arsenal in 4, maybe. But do I want to get rid of Porro for Barco at that point in time? Maybe not. Maybe I just keep in Porro for the goals and assist potential. So, yeah, but you've got to pick someone for your bench, and it might as well be a 4.0 mil player. And then Rodgers, who's had a great pre-season again, been doing really well in front of goal for Aston Villa, and he's got some really good fixtures, especially from game week 3 onwards. So yeah, that's the draft. Roast me.
I really like it, actually, and I hate saying the E word as well, but Pedro Porro, essential.
Pedro Porro. Yeah, nice. Well, it's Solanke that's made him essential, which is interesting. You know, he hasn't made himself essential. You know, he's a an absolute chance creation merchant. His underlying data is fantastic. And now that you've got someone really clinical like Solanke in there instead of Richarlison or a Brennan Johnson or a Kulusevski getting on the end of them, you know, you'd much prefer to back Solanke to be finishing those chances, wouldn't you?
Yep. No, I love the move to Jacob Murphy as well. He's in my team as well. I think he's almost looked like 2008 Cristiano Ronaldo in preseason. He's been ridiculous.
That is a bold statement from the Manchester United fan.
He's just been burning players for fun, and he can finish.
Yeah.
He's just like, I sat back and I'm like, this dude is insane. And
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the difference between Anthony Gordon and Jacob Murphy this season is about 10 points either way. It also wouldn't surprise me if Jacob Murphy outscored Anthony Gordon by about 50 points.
Yeah, and look who he's feeding the ball.
Yeah,
Isak.
I know, right?
And you get a better finisher, and there's been talks about people backing Isak for the Golden Boot this season. So if he gets the Golden Boot, who do you think is going to be feeding him balls? It's going to be probably Jacob Murphy. So
yeah, 100%.
So I did say it would be Jack, and don't worry, we will get to him eventually. But because we're sort of on the vibe and don't really want to bore out Quentin too much, I reckon he's got some cracking food analogies up his sleeve, especially when it comes to his own side. This is yours.
That's a great back line, that, mate. The great back line. 100% agree with it.
Yeah, nah, and Onana, paying a little bit more, and obviously, a bit of PTSD from other United fans last season watching our defense. But this season, you're not going to be seeing the likes of Johnny Evans and Maguire start 20 plus games. You might see the odd game, but you've got De Ligt, you've got Euro when he's back from injury, you've got Martinez, you've got Shaw, you've got Mazaroy, you've got Dallo. Like the defense is a lot better this year, and
so much more depth.
And if they get Ugarte as well in the midfield there, that only makes them a lot stronger as well. So I think Onana with the save points, I really hate the goalkeeper position. It's possibly the worst position in FPL, but if you can get save points, it gives you a decent floor. So I think Onana has that early on in the season with the fixtures. Pedro Porro, I think, is essential. I've watched him preseason. He's been ridiculous, and
he's bonkers, isn't he, man? I can't believe he's almost a differential. Like, he's flying. Yeah.
And another preseason of learning Ange ball, and I think this season I've picked Spurs top 3 this year. So I think if they're going to finish top 3, they're going to have better defense, which Ange showed, I think, in his second year at Celtic. His defense is a lot better. I think they might keep more clean sheets this year, but I think the way they're going to operate is Pedro Porro is going to be pretty much like a winger. So I think upside there. Alexander-Arnold, like you said, the cheapest he's been in forever. So when he was 8 million, people were still getting him. So at his price now, I think he's a bargain. Rashford, like I said to you, I see the confidence. Whether it's going to translate, only time will tell. But at least it's the first game of the season, so we'll be able to know pretty early whether Rashford's going to be in the bin or whether.
Yeah, you could do a lot worse with Rashford, couldn't you? In taking a punt on him than Fulham at home, So yeah. I mean, he could get a couple goals there for sure, and that could really kick him on. He is a confidence player as well. So if he has a good start to the season, then he could be one to keep hold of for sure.
Yeah. So I think, Rashford, what was it, the Community Shield, he hit the post and missed a really good chance. So I think there's a little bit of upside. Diego Jota, like you said, I think he's pretty much the Audi version of the Magnum ice creams, but the really good flavor, the salted caramel, more delicious than the original, which is Salah. And I think, saving a bit of money as well. So it's always good. And Son, as I said to you, with Solanke, Solanke, I think that he only enhances Son's game. So I actually have the captaincy armband on Son after watching Leicester's diabolical defense during the preseason. So I think Spurs could definitely hit Leicester for 4 or 5 goals, I think, if I'm being honest. And then Munoz, can't start the season without my boy from last season. And, I think United, yes, I just talked up their defense, but I still think we're going to start with maybe a Johnny Evans in the middle of the park against Fulham, which is not really building me with any confidence at all week 1.
You have Aldi 11. Oh,
no. Mate, if Audi wants to reach out, I'll take it.
Yeah, this is all from the middle aisle.
Yeah, it's like when you're looking for something else the next minute, you find the seat warmer that's like $4.95, and you're like, it's probably going to break, but that whole 2 days where it works, it's going to be great. But and then Isaac, self-explanatory. He's essential. Hate using the word essential, but he is definitely essential. And Haaland, who, a robot's had a bit of a rest. They put him in a box over the off season, no international football.
In the Captain America chamber.
Exactly. And, I mean, they did it. They got the professor in who, created Frankenstein and, changed a few things. But I think he's ready to go. And, he didn't get a single shot on target against United, which means he's out for blood. And Chelsea, unfortunately, is week 1. So I think he can kick the minions for a few goals week 1. And
the minions. I love that we started that now. Yes.
And then, Smith Rowe is obviously on the bench, but he'll rotate onto the pitch for Jacob Murphy when they have the bad fixture, or he'll be on the pitch for Rashford when they play Liverpool. So I'm sort of looking at maybe the 2 5.5 rotation options. So obviously throughout the season, they'll change to maybe a Minter or someone else that pops up. But Robertson on the bench, I'm backing United to score, so I probably don't want to have him on the field, but he'll definitely be playing over the next few weeks if they're good fixtures. So I feel like it's a pretty balanced squad, and I've got 0.5 in the bank to.
That's a little. Yeah, that's a little curveball. That's a good team, and you can definitely gives you a bit more flexibility to react to whatever the early preseason bandwagon is. When Pedro Neto scores a hat trick against City or something, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
I'm just nervous about the Arsenal game against Wolves. I'm backing Wolves to be better this year, but yeah.
I've got only one Arsenal player and no attackers from them. But then again, like Saka, and hasn't had a full preseason, and it's not that he's not a good player. Like I fancy Son to start with, and I will own Saka at some point during the season. I just fancy Son to start with for sure.
I think you're in the same boat. You can move across because Saka's is he 10 or 10.5?
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Saka's 10 as well. Yeah.
So you can easily move across for Saka and then move back to Son. Like you said, you might move off Son for a few game weeks, then bring him back.
Yeah, for sure.
Smart man. Smart people think alike on this podcast.
Well,
yeah, we are so smarty.
Is it going to be a third person who is not actually on this pod, but he's certainly part of a podcast panel? It being Jack. Now, bit of a warning in defence, bit of a contrast because there's a certain side that's hit his frame. It being double City in defence. We got even Ivan Toney, who's made an appearance that looks to be double United midfield as well. And is that Pedro Neto?
Was this an auto pick team, Jack? Was this an auto pick team? Did you copy your homework from someone else and said that?
It's actually solid. Like you'd obviously change Neto out, but.
Ivan Toney. No Isaac. Jack. No Isaac, Jack. No Isaac Jack is what I'm going to call him. No Isaac Jack. It's got a ring to it. Jack AI rejects. AI rejects team. Oh, my days. Don't get me wrong. I see what he's going for. He's going for something really solid to start the season with. And I think Walker, Akanji, Ben. The thing about Ben is that if Newcastle sign Guehi, he's immediately going to start getting subbed off and then we'll lose his place. Pedro Neto, he's one of the minions. You could have any one of those minions in that role, and it would just be fine. Yeah, hit the road, Jack, says Mim.
You know what this reminds me of? When you go to KFC, you order a Zinger box and someone's half eaten your nuggets and they forgot your chips.
I love the voice change in Quentin there.
Yeah.
The food memes from Quentin. By the way, guys, if you're not on Spotify, I am a listener myself on Spotify to the FPL Amateurs of Oz. Yeah, I listen on Spotify. It's great. Quentin loves the food analogies, man. It's just quintessential FPL listening. So go and give them a follow.
Oh.
But yeah,
the
where's Jack? Where's my Zinger burger, man? Where's my Zinger burger? There's no Zinger.
Tony is the cold chips.
It's the half-eaten nugget.
I'm having laughing through his own microphone.
I need to mute myself. I'm gonna die.
Time that he's had to mute himself before he somehow dies from excessive laughter. So clearly,
it's the cold chips.
Oh, I know. Right. Well, Warren Co's are laughing. Just needs to go. I think it's time for myself to just checking his own eyes.
Yeah, I'm actually crying. Tony's the cold chips, though.
What have we got here? Mr. Nom Nom Quentin.
Mr. Nom Nom.
Jack typed in and he said, need a good striker, so they gave him Tony.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Well, hang on. The plot twist is that we banned Jack on the last episode of last season, so I don't think he's still allowed to comment.
Oh, yeah. Has he been unbanned?
I don't know.
I think Reedy genuinely banned him as a moderator in the chat. What a alpha move that was. Because obviously, Jack's the boss of this project. He runs it in the back scene, and Chris Reed just went, I don't care that you're my boss, lad. I'm a Scouser, and just absolutely sent him to the Shadow Realm.
I don't know how I'm going to do the timestamps to this. I'm going to have a lot of fun come after this episode.
Yeah, love it. I am crying.
Food with the whole pod.
Oh, yeah. Look at this, Chaza. Now, here is a buffet of the lights.
Ooh. Well, it's got it's like Kanye West on all of the lights, and it's different colours wherever you go. Starting with Henderson in goal. I was at one stage on Flecken, but I just feel, look, I've got to try and get to a Palace defence. Had Anderson, but it's too excessive going double. So Anderson left. Robinson came in, and I like a partnership between him and Mikalenko. They rotate well within the first 10 game weeks. Alexander-Arnold came in yesterday, one of 6 changes due to the premium.
Have you not had him at all this pre-season? Wow.
No, not until yesterday, Alexander-Arnold. Vardiol, however, he's been there since the very first draft. Jota came in yesterday alongside with Alexander-Arnold. Was Anthony Gordon, but then straight to the slotter. Alexander-Arnold got upgraded from Anderson because Salah went down to Bukayo Saka, who's now got the vice-captaincy. Eze hasn't moved. Gibbs-White was in the whole time, got moved out yesterday, and then 45 minutes later, I thought, you know what? I still like a pick. He's come back in, mainly as a differential because of Forest's good fixtures. I understand that Gibbs-White probably isn't the talisman of that team, and his ceiling isn't as high, but he's still a fair orchestrator within that, especially from his creativity.
I'd say he's fairly talismanic,
Yeah. I think Chris Wood took a good chunk of the points in the back end of last season. The front three I really like in Isaac, Haaland, Munoz. I think that's going to stay for what it is. Fulham's fixtures look excellent. Is there a way to get Smith Rowe? Look, maybe, but it's a bit hard at the moment. Rodgers, first off for bench.
I know how you could do it, mate. You go Robinson to Ben Johnson. Wow, Ben Johnson hype train. I'm here for it. And then Rodgers to Smith Rowe.
There's something to think about there.
Something to think about.
Think about me. Think about or
Emil Smith Rowe.
There you go. Marco, third sub. He's owned by about 20% now. Shares a fair chunk of the set piece duties. Yeah, Robinson's there. The 4.0 keeper, we had Areola last season. And this, I agree with Quentin, the worst position to choose. So I just found Fabianski for cultural reasons. But that's aside.
Good for the culture.
Yeah.
To keep Damo happy.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that second keeper slot, I tend to pick a player from a team that I have no interest in ever tripling up on. I think there was one time, was it last season, Chaza, when Reedy, another member of the FPL Addicts podcast panel, he wildcarded and stuck a random 4.0 keeper in, and it turned out to be the City keeper, a City backup keeper. I think it was Scott Carson, or was it Ortega? No, yeah, it was Ortega, and he locked himself out of Triple City. So, I've learnt my lesson from that. I've just gone with Lernley. I've never even seen him before, but he just looks like am I ever going to want to triple up on Southampton? Well, the answer's no. So that's why I've gone there. So
I like it. Q, any quick comments? Or is it just you like Munoz there and that's it?
It's actually, as Rev said, it's actually quite a delightful little buffet here of all the premium assets, all the tasty stuff. You've went straight to the meat buffet. Don't worry about the salad. You don't make friends with salad.
You don't make friends with salad.
No,
I really like it. And
there's a couple of questions that I've got, but
come on, let's go. I want to hear it.
I reckon you could maybe go Vardiol down to Poro and save a bit of money, then use that money to then go
Pedro
upgrade
effing
Gibbs White.
Porro, are you kidding?
Yeah, mate. He's going to make Vardiol look like not as good. I couldn't come with something. But how much is Gibbs White?
Gibbs White 6.5.
6.5.
See, that extra 5 could then bring you up to the 7.0, which you could use to invest in a Rashford or a someone else like an Mbeumo even.
Yeah.
Because I think actually Alenga will be a better asset short term than Gibbs White.
Or even Hudson-Odoi to an extent. I think my questions around this, Chaza, would be, so obviously you disagree with myself and Quentin. You've gone for Saka over Son at that price point. Is that just because you're an Arsenal fan? You want an Arsenal player in your team? Or do you genuinely think he's going to be better over these first few weeks?
It's a funny one because I actually don't, as much as Spurs have a good first 2 weeks, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between Spurs fixtures and Arsenal's fixtures within the first 5 to 6 weeks. They've both got tough runs. I feel Saka, look, yeah, he's back into it, but he's one of those players that could just start from the get-go. He doesn't need a lot of preseason in him. I feel that in big games too, Saka can deliver. He's fixture-proof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fair play. The second question I've got about this draft is you've gone for Eze as like a lot of FPL managers have gone for. He's not in either of mine or Quentin's team. I do wonder about the efficacy of the Crystal Palace attack. Obviously, Mateta returning from the Olympics. I think maybe that's just a good pre-season for him, I guess. But also they've lost Elise to Bayern Munich now.
They've also got Salah now and Kamada.
I think Kamada is going to be really good. I think he's going to come onto the... You remember when Matoma... Not a lot of people were aware of Matoma, then he just come out and is just insane. Kamada has the same sort of skill set where he can... he has that quickness with the ball at his feet that he can create separation and get that shot off. And the positions he's been getting into the box, it reminds me of the Eze positions from last season. So I'm wondering whether Eze is going to be pushed into the Elise positions and Kamada's going to fill the Eze void, because I think they'll set up as 2 number 10s in behind Edouard week 1. But obviously you'd want to wait to see week 1 how it's going to go.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I think Palace are a good side. But I think, so often in football we talk about the spine of a team. And when I think about the spine of Crystal Palace, I think of Guehi, I think of Elise, and I think of Mateta as well, And 2 of those 3 players have gone, and the other one hasn't really had the preseason with the team yet. And I don't know. It's just a doubt. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. But a lot of FPL managers seem to be really happy with them. So let us know in the comments, folks. Like, what are you doing over Eze? Do you still believe, or are you a doubter like me?
It's a lot to ponder on, and we are only probably roughly 29 hours until the opening deadline. I know it's getting pretty close. Quickly on some questions that have proved of some intrigue. Now, first of all, you're either going to say yes or no, because I'm pretty sure you've stated obvious. But Gary asked this earlier: Son over Saka, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, and you, yes, Rev, I presume.
100%. Yeah.
Cool. Munoz is a good asset. The downside is a Gehi and Anderson transfer rumours, which Rev briefly touched on. O and Eze also. Is that a put-off factor potentially for Munoz Q?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm not getting Munoz for clean sheets. I'm getting him for that attacking upside, because defenders, all it takes is 1 goal. And we saw last season there's usually 15 minutes of injury time added on at the end. So there's so much opportunity for the other team to score. So I think attacking upside, I still think he's a go.
Yeah.
A question from Francis, and I'll give this to you, Rev. And playing a 3-5-2. If you had to pick one, pick Solanke or Isak to pair with Haaland.
Isak, he's essential. He's essential. But I think Solanke is going to, he's about to make a name for himself here. He really is.
I really like Johnson. I'm literally feel like the only one on Twitter that actually thinks that he's going to have a good season.
Well, as in Brennan Johnson?
Yeah.
Not Ben Johnson? No.
I was listening to, might have been the Above Average pod where old mate was like, yeah, he's been horrible. I'm like, oh, yeah, 40 looked good.
Yeah. Wow.
There you go. All right. One more thing to go. And that is, well, it's not quite a cap, but could wear it like that or around your neck. But anyways, it's Captain's Corner. Speaking of that, I probably should go to sleep, actually. It's the worst segue of all time. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can laugh in the back because we've got our opening Captain's Corner segment for the season. And we're going to start off as per usual. An Egyptian who has had a ferocious opening day record ever since he signed for Liverpool, which is just over 7 seasons ago. And that is Mohamed Salah, who goes away to Portman Road on the opening Saturday. He has scored 8 goals in opening day fixtures, which is his joint record alongside Alan Shearer, Frank Lampard and Wayne Rooney. He carried on his run of returns on this match week with an assist away at Chelsea last season and delivered a goal and 2 assists in pre-season. No player achieved more shots in the box and big chances than him last season as a measurement of per 90 minutes. Metric, Erling Haaland away at Chelsea. Probably a captain option that has been flying under the radar a bit. But hey, the merits there considering how dysfunctional Chelsea can be nowadays. He's got 5 pre-season goals, including a hat-trick against his opponents he will face on Sunday in a recent pre-season friendly. In addition, he scored 16 points away at Stamford Bridge and scored a brace in each of his opening day fixtures, which came away at West Ham and away at Burnley, which was also very first game of last season. Speaking of EE, Alexander Isak and the essential asset. He's forecasted to be probably the most favoured captain choice for the opening game week. Scored a brace on the opening weekend last season at home to Aston Villa in Newcastle's 5-1 win. He's had 5 pre-season outings, 3 goals, 1 assist, 1 blank, and is the most owned player in the game with roughly 57% ownership. Bukayo Saka slowly eased back. He's got a home fixture against Wolves in which he has returned in his last 2 corresponding meetings against Gary O'Neill's team. Last but not least, if you want to wait, it might be up against a head-to-head duel against someone else. You're about 10, 15 points behind. Captain to up your sleeve. Look no further than Dominic Solanke. That's right. Son Heung-min and Dom Solanke. Son has scored 5 goals in his last 2 games against the Foxes. When it comes to goal threat, the Korean has achieved the equals highest goal threat per 90 across all premium assets last season, in which added up to being 20%, same as Chelsea's Cole Palmer, who at the time wasn't a premium, but he is now this season. Solanke's ownership has risen by 12% within the last 5 days, from 15 to 27. In addition, Leicester have failed to score in the last 3 pre-season friendlies, as stated by Quentin with his pre-season friendly watch, and didn't manage a clean sheet in their last 5 friendly hit-outs. All the best for your double points, man, and may your arrow be green, green, green. I'm ready to go, go, go. Now, speaking of like Quentin and I, we've got white cupboards, and Rev's got a bit of green. That's it for Captain's Corner. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, I think I'm on Isak at the minute, but I might get a bit of cold feet and just stick it on the robot, the old Nordic meat shield. Quentin, who's your captain? You said Son, didn't you? That's quite an interesting shout.
I did have Isak to start off with, but the more and more I think of Leicester's backline and what it's going to look like week 1, I just think that Andrew's going to have them pretty primed to sort of hit the ground running, and I think, it could be a horrific scene.
Yeah. I think, are we all in agreement on this pod that we're all on no Salah, right? All of us are on no Salah.
At the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, so, FPL Mez, by the way, go and check them out. Really good content creator as well. Makes some pretty good content that I'm a little bit partial to, which is great. But I think she's considering no Salah.
Mez,
as well.
Thanks for joining later.
Join the dark side, Mez. Join the dark side. 7 podcasts in 6 days. You're an animal, dude.
It's like a festive period all of a sudden.
Yeah. But yeah, no Mo is how we'll go, says Gary.
Ooh.
But he's obviously an incredible captaincy option as well. And
is it actually? Do you reckon we're going to see anyone over 100%?
Oh, like effective ownership.
Yeah, because remember last season it was always like Haaland was 176 or sometimes 200.
Haaland. It'll be Haaland. Yeah, for sure.
You reckon? I actually think that's going to be a cagey game. I wouldn't surprise you to see it like 1-1.
Chelsea. Haaland scored a hat-trick against Chelsea in pre-season.
Yeah.
So
they weren't ready. The minions weren't ready.
Yeah, the minions were chasing an ice cream truck instead. Instead of trying to defend. Gelato! It's like, no, Sterling, no!
And then Gallagher chased the ice cream truck and never came back.
Yeah, it's true.
Before laughing our heads off a little too much, I think it might be best for our first game week. We'll wrap it up there. Quentin,
nice.
Look, I know it's a bit of a festive period for you, but thank you so much for devoting your time onto our pod.
No.
We appreciate it, more so how you direct everything back to food.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And as I said to you, mate, the Addicts pod was the first Aussie pod that I listened to. So it actually was part of the inspiration of getting into my own podcast. So with you and a couple of others, yeah. So I'm always happy to come on if I'm free.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you everyone, and also just thanks to everyone in the chat. Great to see everyone there again. Colm, Gary, Alan, Mim, Mez. So many legends coming back for another slice of their FPL addiction, to really get themselves set up. And yeah, I just wish everyone a great season. By the way, good luck. In 28 hours, something like that, whether we like it or not, the band-aid is going to be ripped off and our teams are going to be locked in, and you're going to have to live with the consequences of your actions. So yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy it.
You're mistaken. I'm about to do night shift weekend, so 3 12-hour night shifts coming up. So I'll be getting paid to listen to Premier League football on the radio, so it's a win-win.
Get in. Love that.
It's a cracker. Until next time, everyone, roll on the match day, sorted.